Hi, Lexi Daly here with this week's episode of Make It Monday for Paper Tray Ink. Today we will be designing a card based on an old favorite of mine, inchies, little 1-inch squares. Inchies have been around for a while, and I really like coming back to them every now and then for a layout. I like the structured look of squares, and it's kind of fun to see what you can do with small 1-inch canvases. For today's card, I started by prepping 1-inch strips of cardstock with a little bit of ink smushing using Hawaiian shores and tropical teal to create watery background for my squares since I was putting the saltair fauna animals in them. This way of creating inchies is very efficient, especially in this case where I have the same background that is going behind each of the sea life creatures. Also, rather than working with such a tiny canvas for each piece that I'm stamping, I've got a bigger paper that I'm stamping on, and then I will cut it down afterwards. So what you see here is me stamping all of my creatures with a little bit of space in between, and I was stamping them a couple of times each because I decided not to use my MISTI and choose then the best ones for my card at the end. And I ended up using the extras as part of my photography props. But I just kind of wanted to have a bunch to choose from and just, do my best at lining them up. I also used the grid block to help out in some cases when the second layer was quite detailed. I would place it on the stamped image and then line up my block, one of the lines, with the top edge of the paper to help me when I went back to stamp it after I inked it up. And that works out really well with a grid block. Once I had all of my sea life stamped in all their lovely layers, I decided to hand draw in the eyes and mouths rather than stamp them. So now it's time to cut them down to their 1-inch square shape. So here I'm using the 1-inch on either side of the blade to help me out. For starters, I'm using the one on the left to kind of help me judge placement, and I'm kind of scooting my strip along, lining it up in between the blade and that one on the left to kind of see where it will sit. And then I scoot it over to the one on the right to cut it once I have the first edge done. So kind of lining it up, finding where I have my first cut, then lining it up with the one on the right to actually do the cutting. So sometimes I'll push it one way or the other just to kind of get it to where I think it needs to be. And really, because they're coming in and out of these squares, it's not completely exact the way I was doing it here. I left myself a little bit of room, and I kind of wanted them to have a little bit of fluid motion, like they're swimming into their square. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Brady Bunch squares, all these different animals popping in and looking at each other maybe. Another way to create inchies is with a square punch, if you still have a 1-inch square punch lying around anywhere. If you do decide to do it that way and prep strips of paper like I did, or sections of paper, you would definitely need it to be a little bit bigger than 1 inch so that you could then turn your die over and fit your image into the space that you see. But this strip way with the paper cutter and sliding my paper along was very quick and easy to do. So here I just wanted each one to have kind of a tile effect. So I have some 3/4 inch foam tape. I'm cutting it into some squares to then stick on the back so they all will sit up, popped up from the card. The wide foam tape also adds some structure to the cardstock because it was still a little bit bendy, having water added to it. So this kind of gives me some nice little structure to my pieces, and they are kind of like little tiles. And now it's time to play around with placement. I knew that I wanted a grid look for this card, but I decided to take out the upper left and lower right corners to add my sentiment and a sun for interest. So here I'm just playing with them, and I play with them, and I play with them, and I play with them until I decide the perfect placement for each one of the animals, making sure that I, have them facing each other in some cases, or not two of the same right next to each other, a good mix of colors and whatnot. And then I just keep playing with them some more. It seems like I was never satisfied, and I even kept going back and forth on some of them until I finally came up with the perfect, or what I finally felt like was the perfect option. I was even switching some with the extras off to the side. I was also looking at the background, the modeling of the blue on the background, the shape and the size of each one of the sea life creatures next to each other. And then when I finally have it done, I go ahead and stamp my sentiment into the empty spot, and then I place them down with by taking off the backing of the foam tape. I tried to just set them down lightly, but boy, that foam tape catches hold quickly. I was still able to move, slightly move some of them around as I worked. I wanted to be sure that I was leaving consistent space around them because I did want a true grid. I probably could have pulled out a ruler and been a little bit more precise, but when you're working with such straight edges, if you're really careful, then you can just place them as you go. And I was just being careful to go in an order that would allow me to keep building onto the one before it and leaving those consistent spaces. Once I got them all into place, I pressed them down more securely and then adhered the sun. The sun is from Sunshine and Honey, and I thought it was a good addition to the phrase "seize the day." I also kept it on the same level, card front level, rather than popped up like the fish, so that I could call attention to those inchies in the layout. And there you have it, the finished card. Now it's your turn. What will you put on your inchies, and how will you stack them up? Head on over to the Paper Tray Ink blog to find out how to link up and play along. This has been Lexi Daly for Paper Tray Ink. Thanks for watching. Bye.